Okay, so here we are a couple of weekends later. It's Easter weekend, lovely warm April sunshine. I'm out here in a t-shirt. It seems a bit crazy to be fitting a fuel-fired heater in this kind of weather, but I just haven't had a chance lately to get that done. I needed this heater fitted for the winter, and I meant to fit it last autumn. Didn't get round to it, too busy doing other things. Spent most of last year doing my winch, various other projects that I've been doing, like the amber strobe lights and the work lights, and lots and lots of other things. So here we are, finally the day has arrived where I'm actually going to fit this to the car. I've removed the front bumper. Okay, so I didn't film that because I've done several videos before showing how to remove the front bumper. Very easy to remove, took about 10 minutes to take that off. So I've got this thick aluminium plate. This is 10 centimeters by 30, I think, or 25. It's 8mm thick, so there's going to be a lot of strength in that. It will also act as a bit of a sort of heat sink. So this burns diesel, so it does get very hot. So whatever I bolt it to needs to be able to, well, for starters, it needs to be metal, and it also needs to be heat proof and ideally dissipate some of the heat that's transferred into it. Okay, so the idea is that this will go sort of like that, very roughly, and then that will go kind of like no, is that right? No, that will go on the other side. It's going to need a bit of machining, this metal. Okay, so I'm going to have to sort of cut a hole for the exhaust, and yeah, something like that. Okay, so I'm going to look at fitting this. Okay, Pit Lane Kitty is going to help me, and we'll try and get this Webasto bolted in. That's the plan for today, and then tomorrow I can start cabling up and connecting up hoses. So we've got the water, the fuel, the electrics. All of that needs doing once the Webasto is actually bolted in, but the idea is that I'll put it in, get all the hoses and wires sort of up, and then put the front end back on the car. Okay, so I've marked up the aluminium plate. I'm going to do a 10mm hole here. There will be a couple of other 10mm holes, but I will drill the chassis first and then through to mark up, and then drill this once it's sort of in position. I can actually mark it through the other holes. Okay, so that one lines up with the existing hole. There's a little cutout here, so I've got the jigsaw here with a metal cutting blade, and then I'm going to use a selection of drills here to make some holes here, 6mm holes for the M5 bolts, and then this, which is a 30mm hole saw for the exhaust hole. Okay, so the reason I'm making that a little bit bigger is we need room for the sort of stainless steel flexible duct to go onto that and be clamped on. Okay, so there's a sort of like a bolt clamp type of thing that holds that on there, so the hole needs to be a bit bigger just to kind of allow that duct to go fully on, and then some kind of clamp. I don't know if there's not going to be that much to play with there, so it might have to be like a little jubilee clip or something or other, but something to get the exhaust duct on there, and it sort of pokes through that hole. Okay, right, let me get my goggles on and start machining this. That's fine, that's perfect. Yep. Okay, right, let's offer this up to the car. Let's see what it looks like. Okay, right. So that will go in like so. And that will go in like that. That's pretty good actually. Pleased with that. So that there isn't quite sitting below the head of that stud. I don't think it's because that groove's too shallow. I think maybe there's a bit of metal there underneath which is just hitting here. So I need to just cut a little bit off there. Just to allow that to go very slowly down. Okay, so quick update on where I've got to. So I've used the angle grinder to cut this notch, make that a little bit wider and take a little chunk out the bottom there. That's to fit over this bar here which has a sort of bit sticking out there. This now fits below the stud heads and this 10mm hole here lines up perfectly. I now need to drill 2 new 10mm holes here for another 2 bolts. That is fitting well. Okay, so there's a little tiny bit of clearance here, which is important. Right, okay, that is really solid. It's not going to go anywhere. Okay, and that, and we'll go like that. We're going to get some M5 bolts, stainless steel M5 with a couple of washers. Put those in. Before I do that, I'm going to rotate these around 90 degrees so they're sticking upwards. Now what I'm trying to do here is tighten these up with the exhaust nice and central in that hole. Okay, now you'll be noticing here that I've not actually wired anything up yet, so I'm not going to tighten this up too tight. This is really just a check to make sure that everything fits and is not sort of going to foul on anything. Okay, right, that is looking good. That's nice and solid there. I was originally thinking I'd need a sort of a steady bar kind of coming up to here, but this bracket's so strong and thick that that's really held solidly. There's no need for any extra steadying. Right, okay, so that is in. The exhaust can go kind of here, down there. The front fog light will sit about here, but it doesn't come any further back than about here. My slight worry is that as that exhaust pipe sort of comes off there, it might hit the back of the fog light. There's only one way to find out really, and that is put some of the ducting on there and put the front end back on and see if that clears. Right, what I'll do is just lift the front end into position, and then I can look down this hole here and just see if, look down from above and see if there's any clearance issues. I've rotated these, okay, so those are pointing upwards so the hoses can come up either over and down through there or possibly up through there. I don't think there's enough room to go up above there, so I might have to go down there. If I bring them up and then sort of like that, I can always put some little clamps or something on here to kind of secure the hoses in place. What about the air as well? That's something that I need to be careful of. The air duct is there, so that's quite close to here, but should just about clear that. I'll get the ducting for the air and the exhaust, and we'll just kind of put those on and just see what it looks like. And also I'll dig out the hoses that I've got for here, just kind of see how flexible those are and how easily they duct back down through that hole there. Okay, let's have a very quick look now at the hose routing. So this blue hose here comes out of the air filter housing, the air box, using an adapter that I've designed, and that will go round and off, down, up there to the vent on the wing. Okay, and one day there'll be a snorkel there. So I do need to keep this here. There's just no other way to route that. That can't go up round here. The headlight comes back right into there. Okay, vertical from that kind of clamp upwards. So there's no routing anything round here. There's not much room for anything underneath here. There is a little bit of room here, up there. Okay, so what I'm thinking, originally I was thinking of maybe taking the water hoses up there, but it's just going to be a job fitting two of them up there. So with this hose, oops, right, so let's just push this one through. That will go through there. Now this will just have a little air filter on the top. It could possibly be brought up here, somewhere here. I just don't think there's going to be enough room there by the time we end up with hoses there. The best thing for this is to just come up inside the car to a small air filter. It could even possibly connect in here. That's probably not going to really work then, because then it's going to try and the engine's going to take air through this, through the Webasto. So it's got its own filter. I bought one of those little sort of breather kind of things, little K&N breather, but I then decided to buy the proper Webasto air filter, because apparently it does more than just filters the air. It actually sort of stops resonance in the sort of air waves coming in. Now that needs to go somehow. Difficult doing this with one hand. Right, I'm going to see if I can get that onto there, and then I'm going to have a look The exhaust is a sort of stainless steel tube. I don't really want to unfold this too many times because it's going to end up kind of splitting and creating sharp edges. So I need to have a bit of a think about the exhaust, because there needs to be a little silencer. Maybe that could sit in this area and then duct sort of down and out. I'll probably leave the exhaust for now. I know that there's room here for that exhaust, okay? And then the big problem is the water pipes, because there aren't many ways to route those. You can't go here, okay? There is a sharp metal edge and there's a bolt like stud sticking out there, so that's no good, and I need room for this. So that leaves down there or here. Okay, so that's the bottom radiator hose, that's the intercooler input hose. This clamp here is to stop the hose rubbing against the bodywork, just in case you're wondering. Okay, there's just another Michelor clamp there just to add protection. Otherwise the metal here rubs through and you end up with a split intercooler hose. Feels like it's already started to go, actually. Yeah, so that only really leaves that hole down there, which is quite large, but that does bring the water hoses in low down. That's going to bring them in down here. Don't know if you can see that, get the camera to expose properly. I'm going to bring them in down here and then up, which isn't too bad. It would be nicer if they were brought in at this level here, but I just don't think we can do that really, it's just not enough room. So this hose here for the air intake will just sort of come up here to a little kind of filter thing up here. I want the air filter to be nice and high up so that if I go wading, water doesn't enter the Webasto. Okay, right, let me get the air hose connected on, and I'm going to connect the water pipes on as well and just kind of see what I can do with those. Okay, so here we are the next day. It's kind of sun and showers today, so in between the heavy April showers I need to get the front of my car back together because I've got to drive it tomorrow. Okay, now the Webasto isn't in and working, it's not finished by a long shot. Okay, there's still loads to do, but I'm going to bring this video to a close shortly, okay, because I've done a lot of footage filmed in the last few days, and that will become part 5 once I've edited it down and uploaded it to YouTube. And then in part 6 I'm going to look at actually kind of connecting up. There's the electrics to do, there's the fuel, the exhaust, the air, the water connections. There's still a lot to do. Okay, there's a lot to do. So just a quick recap of where I've got to. The Webasto's in. Okay, it's in down in there. I don't know if you can see that. It's quite bright sunshine today. Let's just see. There we go. Right, there it is down there. Okay, so it is in, bolted in on that nice thick aluminium plate. Now that is secured in position, I'm finding some problems. Okay, so I'm now encountering various challenges with regards to routing of the hoses and pipes and things like that. So the good news is it's in there, it's in the space down there, it's not interfering with the fog light. So this panel here is not bolted in, but that's sort of pushed in. The front end's just attached loosely. That is in. It doesn't hit the back of the fog light, doesn't hit the Webasto. Okay, the bottom of the fog light, which is here, is sort of level with the top of the Webasto. Okay, so I did mount the Webasto quite low. I probably ended up actually bolting it in a bit lower than I was originally planning, but that's just the way that the metal work and everything kind of worked out. So what it means then is that where the exhaust comes out the front face of the Webasto and has ducting and probably a silencer or something on it as well, there's lots of room for that because it's below the fog light. Okay, so that has presented various problems though, okay, doing it that way. I think if the Webasto was higher up, the exhaust would then be sticking out, it would hit the fog light, it just wouldn't work. But with that low, with the Webasto that low, the actual inner wing here, that is hard against the bottom of the Webasto heater. Okay, I don't know how hot that is going to get. It's burning diesel, so it's probably going to get quite hot. But the bottom part of the Webasto does have water, kind of like a water jacket sort of circulating around it. So the flame's deep inside the heart of the Webasto. That's the really hot bit. And then the water, it sits between that and the outer aluminium sort of body. Okay, so it probably won't get that hot, but it could easily get up to sort of 60, maybe 80 degrees C. That could cause this plastic to start to sort of heat up and kind of deform. I don't think it will actually like melt or catch fire, but this is probably ABS, it's a thermoplastic. It could end up sort of drooping or bulging. There are various things I can do to prevent that. I could put like a self-adhesive, heat-proof sheet between the plastic and the Webasto. You can get these kind of like shiny silver fiberglass sticker kind of heat-proof stickers, which they use on motorbikes and that to stop the heat from the exhaust sort of damaging any other parts. So I could sort of stick some of that on the back of the plastic. As well as that, I could move the Webasto frontwards. Okay, so I could move it forwards. I could actually put the metal bracket on the other side of the bodywork, move it about probably be about 2 centimeters forwards. Okay, so that's one option. I don't really want to do that because then that leaves less room for the exhaust and the ducting and everything else. It also means I've then got to cut more kind of grooves and chunks out of the aluminium to get it to kind of sit over the metal work at the front. So that is something I could do. I will try not to have to do that if I can help it. So that's one thing there. Now the pipe work is also presenting a bit of a problem. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the front end off the car, and then I will be able to show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so let's have a look at the various pipe work. So first of all, we've got the air duct. Okay, so that is the air duct there going up underneath the headlight and somehow up into the engine bay. Now I could bring that up here, possibly up here, I don't know, or here. It just needs to be sort of up in the dry. Okay, I don't want to risk water entering that air duct if I'm wading and water ends up sort of coming up over the front of the car. Okay, so wherever that air filter sits, ideally inside the engine bay, just a bit warmer and drier, but it could go up over here. This gap here, I need to leave room to run a large blue silicone duct. Okay, so that will go off as part of my snorkel project. Okay, so that area here must be kept clear. There is enough room to run the fuel line, which is here, and the electrics, and possibly the air duct as well. If that becomes a bit of a squeeze, then I'll have to bring that up here somewhere. And there's no room at all for the water pipes. to go through there. The exhaust is different because that goes off down under the car, and then that leaves the water hoses. Okay, so I've tubally clipped these on here. These are 19mm or 3/4 inch hoses. Okay, just rubber radiator water hoses. These soften a bit when they get warm, but at the moment when they're cold they're really stiff and they're really difficult to bend without them sort of kinking up. Okay, so wherever I route those, I need to not only make sure that they're not kinked or bent too sort of around any kind of sharp corners, I also need to be very careful that the metalwork, like this bit here, doesn't sort of cut into the hose. This one here has already got a chunk out of it. So you know, they're not that thick, fairly thick, but they're not that strong. They're reinforced with a sort of cloth, but sharp bit of metal edge that'll go straight through those, and then the coolant's going to leak out and the car's going to overheat. So I just don't want to. I don't want to even think about that. Okay, so the routing of these coolant hoses is becoming a bit of a headache. They can't go up here. Could go down here, although there's a sharp bit of metal there. Could go here. There's a sharp bit of metal there and a sharp bit of metal there. The latest idea that I've had is to get some metal, like aluminium elbows. Okay, so instead of a rubber or silicone kind of elbow, it's actually a metal pipe bent into an elbow. That will go round here and up, or through there and up, or one hose through each. Don't know yet, okay, whether I'll take two here or two there or one through each hole. But at least the metal will be stronger and more resilient to sort of rubbing through. Then I could then bring a hose across here and down. The fog light sits here, okay, so the bottom of the fog light is kind of level with the top of this, top of the Webasto unit. So the fog light kind of sits about here. You can see there that it is sort of, yeah, it's about here. Okay, so the hoses could go across here. That should be okay, as long as they sort of keep in quite close to the Webasto and then sort of round. There is also the water pump to think about. The fuel pump and the fuel non-return valve, and possibly also a fuel cut-off valve, that will all be in the engine bay. Okay, the electrical control box I'm going to build, it'll be in the engine bay, in the dry. Don't know where I'm going to put that yet, haven't even thought about that. The battery, which I need to run this, will be in the engine bay, probably up and underneath there. So that does leave the water pump. Where can I put the water pump? And originally I was going to... Sorry, it's a bit windy at the moment. Hopefully there's not too much wind noise. Water pump was going to go down in here somewhere. But there is quite a big space here. Okay, so the water pump could go here. Now let me just find the water pump and I'll show you. Okay, so here's the water pump. It's a fairly chunky unit. Okay, it's got a sort of a 3D printed bracket on the bottom there, which I made just to put it onto the breadboard. Now this could go kind of down in here somewhere in the engine bay underneath the air filter box. That's originally where I was going to put it. But looking at the arrows on this, there is an arrow there. Okay, so this is the output. That's the input. So it comes in the middle and then sort of centrifugal force throws the water out. There's also arrows here and here. So this is the input, this is the output. So that could go kind of like that, a little bit nicer, sort of mounted somewhere like this. Okay. Probably onto this piece of metal here. which is not strong enough to mount the actual Webasto on really, but it is perfectly strong enough to mount the water pump. Okay, so if that water pump's like that, this hose can go into that there, so the water comes along from the heater into there, down into the Webasto. This one here needs to either loop over the top, or I've got some little right angled elbows, plastic sort of elbows, a bit like these ones here, which I could then send that sort of across underneath the water pump. That would work. I think that would work very well. This is a sealed unit. I mean, it's a water pump, so it is by very nature fairly waterproof. The water inside doesn't leak out. The question is, does water on the outside get in? I don't know. Looks quite sealed up, actually, those wires and that. So that could go there, and I have seen other people mount their water pump sort of here as well. Okay, so that could go like that. Then we've got the hose connection here, which needs to go into the engine bay. Okay, so what I'm thinking at the moment is to probably take one through there, probably this one here, comes up, goes across straight down through there, and then the pump output goes here and through another elbow there. And then what we would have in the engine bay are two sort of pipes coming through and pointing upwards, and then they can easily be then routed to the thermostat housing and the heater hoses. That's the thinking at the moment. That's where I've got to. Okay, so I'm going to carry on with this next weekend. That's it for this video. Okay, so thank you very much for watching. I'll continue this project in part 6, and in that video I'm going to look at getting everything kind of connected up, and also look at the electrical control box as well. There might be a part 7, there might be a part 8, I don't know. I'll just keep filming until this is done and working. So that's it for part 5. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you. Bye.